What's up, guys? Today we're exploring Mentryville, an eerie 1870s ghost town hidden away in the California hills. This quiet spot was actually the state's first true oil boom town, the literal birthplace of Chevron. From an abandoned pioneer schoolhouse to a creepy historic mansion, we're uncovering the forgotten ruins where the massive empire began.
Now it's funny because, when you turn right here at Stevenson's Ranch Parkway, it takes you to more of the homes, but if you keep going straight, it pretty much takes you to like this other part of the town. Pretty much looks like everybody parks their car here and hikes up the Santa Monica Mountain Conservatory. No roadside parking at all, but we're going to go all the way to Mentryville, so we're going to keep going forward. So it's just absolutely beautiful here, just green everywhere and trees and shrubs. So we got to be careful for rattlesnakes and other animals that might be living up here because it is springtime and they are out and about, and it did just rain, so gotta be careful with that. So far, no one on the hiking trail, but it looks like I could see the house, which we're getting pretty close to, and there it is. Here's the barnyard. We have now entered Mentryville. So we just arrived, and I can tell you right now, it is no one here. There is probably one person inside, the caretaker, but overall there's nobody here. The parking lot is huge, as you can tell, and it smells very, very fresh out here. There are electricity poles going down that way, so who knows what's going on over there or what goes down that way. But ladies and gentlemen, we are in Pico Canyon, aka Mentryville. So there is paid parking when you come, so keep that in mind. It is $5. So they do have the electronic parking ticket machine, but not working. So you have to use the Iron Horse. So $5 inside the Iron Horse. So let's go explore Mentryville because we have an hour to check this place out. So since it did rain, there is a creek, which looks pretty cool. It's coming from up there where the other electricity poles are going towards. So I kind of want to follow that in just a bit. It goes right under the bridge of where you cross down this way. And like I said, we got to be careful because there are rattlesnakes. It is rattlesnake season. And lizards, because there's a lizard to my right. So we got to be careful. But look at that. Now when you enter, it's funny because I'm wearing a polo shirt, but when you enter, there's a split to the right and to the left. So we're gonna go left first where the schoolyard's at and where the old Pico Canyon refinery is at, and then we're gonna come back and head over to the last couple buildings standing here in Mentryville. Like I said, we'll check the schoolhouse out in a bit. We're gonna go up a little bit more just to see what's up there. I hear crickets already. I smell horse manure, so I keep looking down to make sure I don't step on anything. Now, I'm assuming this is the original wood, which is pretty cool. They did board up the windows for obvious reasons. There are modern blinds up there. So right here, you do have the schoolhouse, and then you have the first outhouse, and this is for the boys. Now, I know it's for the boys because there is no cement or walkway towards the schoolhouse. Yep. Now, it'd be crazy having two people sit here at the same time, but that's how it was before a divider wall came along for modern restrooms. Now, just on the other side is the ladies, so the girls' restroom, and pathway. Interesting, huh? You gotta be careful with these holes here. Pretty cool.
So my name is Evan Decker. I guess you could say I'm the president of Mentryville, California, Inc., which is the nonprofit trying to restore and preserve the history here, and have these buildings look as they would have in their heyday. And so really, where we are now, this is the Pico Cottage, or depends on who you talk to. This is the big house. It is the largest house. There were many, many more buildings up the canyon here. By 1880, of course, oil had been drilled here since about 1876. By 1880, you had about 100 families living here.
Wow.
So everybody from entire families building their own dwellings here. So there were homes across the creek here. There was actually originally a 2-story bunkhouse and a boiler right here. They had heated water. This place was really ahead of its time. There were buildings and barns about where the parking lot is. There was actually, in about 1883 when they built it, it was a big oil tank where that parking lot is. And it was the state's largest oil tank at the time. And so, this place was teeming, and so you had, you didn't have groceries or saloons here. You had to go down to Newhall for that. And actually, this thing right here, this kind of platform, it is original. And I jokingly call it the primitive bus stop. So twice a day, the stage would come up here from Newhall. So the road you drove up, from basically, if you came down Lyons and came up Pico Canyon Road, it turns into Pico once you cross the 5. But once you enter the canyon 2 miles down, it's the same road as the wagons came up and later Model Ts would come up.
Wow.
And so the stage would come up from Newhall twice a day, pull up right here. And the pumpers, as their job description they were called, the job title, excuse me. They would wait here, and the ladies too. So you'll see there's that kind of platform that jets out on the left there.
Right.
And so because in the Victorian era, the women had their big hoop skirts, and so at the time, the road was and the wagon were level, and so they could just walk right on. Wow. Without having to ruffle up their dresses. And so this house also was a boarding house for any dignitaries from the oil company that would come. They would stay here. Okay. And so it was fit with gas fixtures piped directly from the oil derricks up the canyon. It's crazy because this house, when it was built, Newhall was only 20 years old. Really? Newhall was established in 1876 as when the railroad was joined there at Lang Station, which is present-day Canyon Country. Right. And so it was literally 2 weeks after that, Mentry does his big oil discovery here. Wow. And then October 1st of that same year, 1876, Newhall was formally established. Wow. The rail, so it's a big year this year, 150. And so basically, there was so much going on. And so, it was a teeming town. So anyway, going back to in the 50s, 60s, so the decline, Alt Manzer, his wife Pat, and their son Daryl, who was 9 at the time, they moved into this house in about late 1959. And I still talk to Daryl. He's a hoot to talk to. He's 76 and lives in Tombstone, Arizona. Oh, wow. So I joke with him. I said, you went from one ghost town to another. So basically, his bedroom was the second floor bedroom up above us here on this side, in the front. And so, but it is 13 rooms, 5 bedrooms upstairs, dining room, parlor, and here, I'll show you inside at this point. All right. So you can see actually in here, you'll see a pipe with a valve sticking out. I know it's dark, but there would have been, each room was lit by natural gas, piped directly from the derricks 2 miles up the canyon. Wow. So Mentry was when he was building, and this was actually his third and final house in the canyon. The other 2 were a little bit up the canyon. Okay. And so a little bit past, his first one was on the opposite end of the creek, a little bit past the present day parking lot. And then the second one was where that he lived in was on the other side of the creek, about where the two water tanks are on the curve.
Wow.
There was a house there.
Wow.
And so then this was his final one. And so anyway, I keep jumping back and forth. There's so much. So in 1966, again, Mentryville was threatened with demolition.
Right.
And so you have Frenchie Lagasse, who worked for the oil company. He had worked for the company since about 1947. And it's funny because his first time up here was he helped remove, there were 3 chimneys originally, one on the side, one here, and then one on the parlor side. He helped remove the parlor chimney in 1947.
Wow.
So in 66, again, the place was threatened with a wrecking ball, and so he and his wife persuaded the company to let them live here. And so they had, it was $50 a year. The company leased it to, and we're talking 856 acres.
Yeah, wow.
So not just the house, but all, and so they went about restoring the house. They actually also collected the history of the place. So they were able to, they did like reunions for the school children that attended Felton School. Of course, but by this point they were all old.
Right.
And so we know all the teachers that taught at that Felton School and the children that attended there. And so, and they were also founding members of our historical society.
Wow.
And so they, I mean, even though they lived here and it was still privately owned, so by this point, in about the 70s, Standard Oil rebranded as Chevron USA. So Chevron really was, yeah. So they lived here until they were here the morning of the Northridge earthquake. The house suffered considerable damage.
From this earthquake, although perhaps many minor incidents, is going to be extensive.
It just felt like something hit the side of the house, and then it just started rolling and got stronger and stronger, and the house started shaking back and forth.
As you look out your window, it's probably pitch dark right now. Oops, hang on one second. This is a very sharp aftershock that just hit us right now.
Our whole house, which is a 2-story house in Calabasas, really shook. Stuff came off the walls. It was impossible to even try to stand up and walk around.
That pile right there, the first pile you come to is where they're at. That pile. Where's that light? Give me that light.
There seems to be a lot of reports of damage and rock slides on the 14 freeway from the Antelope Valley down to the San Fernando Valley. And according to some of the mobile people, they seem to say that the 14 freeway is closed at San Fernando Road.
Right now, the best we know is that this was an earthquake that came through about 4:31 this morning, lasted about 30 seconds in the strongest hit areas, and preliminarily may have measured 6.5 on the Richter scale.
Right.
And actually, I have photos in here, historic photos. That's how it looked right after the earthquake. And so basically, all the buildings were, they weren't built on foundations. They were built on kind of like these struts basically. And so what happened was when the earthquake in Northridge hit, there was actually a fault line on the mountaintop that runs kind of along and down and on the other side up here.
Right.
And what happened, I don't know geology or whatever, but it triggered that fault line and the house slipped 8 feet to the west.
Wow.
And the entire porch came out. The house is built out of redwood, so very durable material. So after the earthquake, the next year, Chevron sold the land and the buildings to the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. With the whole agreement that this would be a museum, open air museum kind of thing, where the buildings would be furnished and, really a place where people can see how it was back then.
Right.
And so then a fire in 2003 and the floods the following year from big rainstorms kind of dashed those efforts. There was a whole nonprofit made called the Friends of Mentryville, and they did in the early 2000s fall harvest festivals to raise funds. But after those 2 disasters, it was kind of, So a gentleman by the name of Dwayne Hardy, who was part of the Friends of Mentryville, he would give go out of his way to do school tours and group tours for like church organizations, scouts, and I knew him very well. He was also our treasurer for the historical. I served on their board when I was 18. I'm 28 now. So he was basically a mentor. And the first time I came up here was 13. I grew up knowing about this place.
Right.
But I came up here for a historical society. The board went up here for a private tour and we walked through the buildings, and it was in much worse shape than it is now. And so I just fell in love with the place. And so basically I learned from him. I would do work parties. We cleaned, I remember in high school, I did a whole cleanup weekend at the Felton School, and that's when somebody donated that antique potbelly stove. That was in about 2013.
Okay.
And so Carol Lagasse, who lived here, she, after the earthquake, moved to Lebec. Frenchie passed away in 1996, so I never knew him. But over the years, I would do the research on this place. Through my work at the Historical Society, I had access to the archives and all that. And Carol, because she collected, photos. So these are actually photos from her archive. And this is that's Carol and Frenchie there in about the 1980s. So they lived here the longest.
Wow.
And so Carol passed just last year, early June, I think. And so her daughters gave me everything. And
Wow.
We're talking like ledgers of how much oil was coming out of the wells up the canyon from 1892. Yeah, so my whole goal is to restore this place, and basically it's up to me now. And so in 2020, I established Mentryville, California, Inc. to do that, because Friends of Mentryville disbanded after Dwayne's passing. And so, of course, when I did establish the second one, Mentryville, California, Inc., it was during COVID.
Wow.
So all the restrictions and all that. So a couple weeks ago, back in February, I did a history hike here. Over 60 people came. We went all the way up, stopped at the bakery site, Johnson Park. There was a bakery here in the heyday.
Wow.
So if you kept going up the road to the first footbridge, and you cross that footbridge there's a foundation, a kind of a rock square foundation there under an oak tree. And that was the foundation for the oven for Mr. Cochins' bakery.
See, I was going to walk up there, but I was like, I don't.
Yeah. You could have kept going. It's literally, if you go around that first bend, the road curves like that, and there's a footbridge just around that second bend.
Okay.
And it's literally probably from the schoolhouse like a 5-minute walk.
So I wonder how many people that hike up there actually know about that.
Not many.
Yeah, that's what
very few. There's only, it's funny because of course I have all the history, but there's only 3 people left that really understand the history other than me, and they lived here. 2 of Carol's surviving daughters and Daryl Manzer, who grew up here in the early 60s.
Wow.
And it was actually his mother who convinced Edison to bring electricity up here in 1964.
So I was wondering, I saw the poles and all that.
Yeah, that was because of Daryl's mom, but it's crazy because the entire house, all of the floorboards you're walking on are original. So if you think about it, when they built this house, all the lumber was shipped from up north on the Southern Pacific Railroad. And if you've done history on our town, there was a depot in Newhall, where the Metrolink station is now. It was just a one-story long building, really more for freight, and there was a little waiting area. But all that lumber was unloaded from the Newhall depot, loaded on buckboard wagons, taken up this road and brought here.
Wow.
So, and actually Lyons Avenue in the early town maps was called Pico Road. So, yeah, so it's really the road to Mentryville. And if you think about it today, if you turn off of Railroad, there in front of the library on Alliance, and just keep going straight, no turning, you just follow the road, cross over the freeway, turns into Pico Canyon, come all the way up, you're here.
Yeah.
So,
that makes sense.
Really, the early days of Newhall and this area go hand in hand. So, as I said, Mentry was a teetotaler, so of course no alcoholic consumption. So the guys would go down to, there were 2 saloons in Newhall that were catered strictly to the oilmen. And of course, at that time, the main street was actually a block over on Railroad Avenue. And where basically that S curve there in front of the station, or in front of, the Metrolink station there, between 8th and Market. And so the popular saloon to go to is the Derrick. And that is not there anymore, but the site of it is still a bar. It's 8th and Rail.
That's 8th and Rail.
Yes.
Wow, look at that.
So all the men would come down, wait right there in front of the house, get loaded up on the buckboard wagon, go down to the Derrick Saloon, or around the corner on Railroad was the Oil Exchange, that was run by the judge, our first judge in town, Mr. Powell, Judge Powell. And it's funny because his wife was the sister of Alex Mentry.
Oh,
So they were related. They were brother-in-laws.
Yeah, there you go.
So they and those two men alone had power in the early days.
Oh
of this
yeah,
town.
absolutely.
And so yeah, it's really quite. And actually, it's one of the things I inherited was the judge's marriage certificate.
Oh,
Which I mean, it's gorgeous. They married on March 30th, 1870, here in Newhall.
okay.
So yeah, it's really interesting how closely related the history here, in Newhall go hand
It's
in
all
hand.
hand in hand. Yeah.
And even like the Pardee family, Ed Pardee, who was one of our early constables, he was a pumper up here. And so the Pardee house, which is over at our historical society, it's when you go up to the history center, they're past. It's in Hart Park, but it's it's its own prop space. There's the first greenhouse there, and that's the Pardee house, and that was Ed Pardee's home. And of course, as you probably have researched, all those 8 buildings that are over there were moved. They were relocated because they were going to be torn down. So the Pardee house used to be in its original location over where the Veterans Triangle is, where the statue over there on Market, Walnut, and Newhall.
Wow.
So yeah, it really goes hand in hand, the history here. But all the original, everything's hardware-wise is original. Doors, baseboards, the railing, the linoleum, the flooring here, this kind of floral I want to say it's probably from the 40s.
Wow.
So in restoring this, or what I've been doing right now is just kind of cleaning it, sprucing it up, at least making it look presentable. So my latest project has been literally scrubbing all the baseboards, the wood. I spent all day yesterday doing the balustrade.
It looks great in here.
Still got a lot of work, but the whole idea is to have period furniture in here and really show people what it was like here.
Kind of like what they're doing over there at Fort Tejon.
Yeah. And Fort Tejon, their state, that's the thing they have their state parks. They have more money. Conservancy, they were founded as they basically are a nature conservancy that were founded by state senators in the 1980s. Their whole purpose was to buy and save land that was big chunks of land in Santa Monica Mountains and Santa Susana mountain ranges that were threatened with development.
Right.
But they're only to keep it temporarily and then give it to like a state agency or county park. I actually work at Placer Canyon Nature Center, so I work for the county parks and recreation.
Oh, that's cool.
But I manage another historical part of our valley, the Walker Cabin, which is over there.
Okay.
When you first drive in, and of course where the site where gold was first discovered,
right.
Oak of the Golden Dream, of course. And so, of course, Francisco Lopez in the early days, in the 1860s, when they were first kind of hearing these early entrepreneurs from Pennsylvania, because actually prior to Pico, and I forgot to mention this, prior to Pico Canyon, all of our nation's oil was coming out of Pennsylvania.
Really?
Yeah, so this was really the birthplace of the California oil industry.
And that's why it was a booming little town.
Yeah, there is so much oil coming out of here, it is ridiculous.
Now, is the oil dried up already?
Yeah. So well number 4, which was the historic well, and if you were to hike 2 miles up the canyon, at the end of the paved road is the site of well 4, and there's 2 plaques there. One that was placed in June of 1953, and the other was placed by the National Park Service in 1966, November. And it's funny because well 4 is on the National Register. It was the first group of historic sites to be listed on the National Register, because the whole National Register of Historic Places was created in 1966. And so in LA County, the first grouping, the 2 properties that were placed on the register was the Andres Pico Adobe, San Fernando, and well number 4.
Wow, look at that.
And Mentryville is a state historic landmark.
That's a beautiful little place too.
Yeah, it is. It really sure is. But yeah, no, so it's really quite interesting how, and the walls here date from the 50s, the paint.
Yeah, I was gonna say the paint is from what year?
About 1950s.
Okay.
So you have to pay, because I just saw the ranger come up.
Okay.
He checks the parking permits, and you have to pay it, but you get $5 cash.
Okay.
So there's the Iron Ranger there, and they're very sticklers about it. So if you do,
Okay.
it's a $75 ticket.
Well, I'll pay more than $5.
Yeah, no, well, the problem is with that, it doesn't go to the...
Oh, it doesn't go here.
No, that's not how it goes. Although they have been doing a lot, so I've been watching them do the fire prevention, weed whacking, all of this, and it was pretty overgrown. And so, yeah, it was, I've watched the last 3 days, they were weed whacking, because with historic structures, and especially in remote areas, they have to be weed whacked. I think it was 100 feet around from each historic building.
Wow. Well, hey, thank you so much for all this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
You know, it really makes you appreciate, you know, the nature that we have here in Southern California. It's not all about cars and tall buildings and who has the best club out there. You know, it's about nature. All right, just met some nice guys. They're going up the hike. First time up there too, so I guess we'll see on our next video what's actually up there. So people do actually come and hike up here, which is pretty cool. But I'm actually gonna come back another day to continue the video because, I mean, as you heard, there's just so much more stuff going on here. And I think it would be great to actually head up the mountain another day and take a look at that bakery and see what else there is. Because I thought it was just here, but there's so much more. So let's come back another day.